Hey Greyhounds! After all the waiting, Ted Lasso is finally back. Let's have a look at all the Easter eggs and cool details in the first episode of Season 4. We open with Ted working in a grocery store that is owned by Ron Fowch, Ted's favorite incorrigible childhood friend. We first heard of him in Season 1 when he tried and succeeded to make Ted eat a chocolate bar made of poop at the playground of Brookridge Elementary School back in Kansas City. Then in Season 2, Ted, while trying to bond with the concussed dog Sharon, retells her of a prank by Ron Fowch, who apparently tried to make someone eat a Vaseline sandwich. In Season 3, we see him in Ted's contacts, and he even comes up in Ted's mom's stories. We finally meet the man, the innovator. He is, of course, eating a Butterfinger, his favorite candy bar. The opening cash machine beeping sounds are supposed to make us think that Ted isn't really living his life in Kansas City, right? The first thing we see is Ted's name tag as opposed to zooming to a face, which is pretty much how the first 3 seasons started and closed. I don't think there's a particular meaning to it, just as I couldn't find a particular meaning for those close-ups of the faces. Of course Ted is the employee of the month, he's Ted, but also look at the other employees. The obligatory musical reference of the episode is to the Lionel Bart musical Oliver, which, along with Disney's Aladdin, apparently glorified thieving for Ted. At school, Henry gets in trouble for writing out the lyrics to Public Enemy's Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos 1989 single from their album It Takes Millions to Hold Us Back. Ted also references their song Fight the Power, which is from Spike Lee's 1989 film Do the Right Thing. Michelle mentions Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Nation of Islam, a black nationalism organization of which Malcolm X was spokesperson for many years. And in turn, he was an icon for Public Enemy and other hip-hop groups. We know that Ted is interested in Malcolm X, as in Season 1 he referred to his autobiography as Alex Haley's most seminal work. Ted also plays Public Enemy's Can't Trust It to get Henry in the zone before his game. There's a further Do the Right Thing reference in the episode when Ted tells Higgins that he looks like Mookie, the protagonist of the film, when he wears his Monarchs baseball shirt. The show clearly likes the film. It even paraphrased its title for a Season 2 episode name. It was nice to see Ted and Michelle vibing in that principal's office. She wasn't much of a character in the first 3 seasons, and if she's sticking around this time, it would be good if she had some substance. Henry goes to the Daniel Manning Elementary, which has to be a call-out to Danny Manning, a legendary Kansas University basketball player who won a national title with the Jayhawks, before playing 15 years in the NBA and becoming a coach. The school's varsity team is the Meadowlarks? I guess the Meadowlark is the Kansas state bird, but it's also the state bird for another 5 states. Aren't there enough birds in the US to pick state birds from? Michelle's annoying colleague is called Derek, much like the annoying colleague from the Yankee Doodle burger barn that Ted visited in Amsterdam when the team was visiting for a friendly in Season 3. Alright, on to the British invasion, sort of. Sorry, but Ted's neighborhood looks depressing. Maybe plant a flower or something? Keely's red shoes bring to mind The Wizard of Oz. The show has touched on the iconic film numerous times. In the pilot, with Ted's "We're not in Kansas anymore" reference, and throughout the seasons with the pinball machine in the pub. I guess Ted may be in Kansas, but he's still not at home. Ted's little jump when he sees his old friends is reminiscent of the jumps he used to do in Rebecca's office when he was excited. In the first 3 seasons, Ted kept banging on about Kansas City barbecue, so it's cool that we finally see the inside of a BBQ joint, Gates Barbecue. When Ted enters the restaurant, the staff all yell his name in unison, much like his friends did in Rebecca's office back in Richmond, just like they did in the Cheers bar for Noel, who was incidentally played by Jason Sudeikis' IRL uncle George Wendt. We get a running joke of Rebecca ruining all her expensive clothes with barbecue sauce. She hasn't always had great luck with keeping her tops clean in the past too. Ted has a nickname for Higgins as usual. This time it's Higgly Wiggly. Casablanca is also referenced in the episode, with Ted doing the heavy work, paraphrasing the Gin Joins quote of Poggy, and jumping to the opportunity to do the goodbye scene with Rebecca, who as usual neither knows the reference nor cares for it. Ted also has a poster of Casablanca at home. We know that the show has a soft spot for the film. The title of the Season 3 episode, where Michelle went to Paris with boyfriend Jake, was also a paraphrase of the famous "We'll always have Paris" quote. Poor Ted. How often does one find themselves with a perfect opportunity to do that goodbye scene? Literally standing on the tarmac in front of a small plane. That, by the way, Rebecca shouldn't be flying, as she promised Nora that she would stop at the end of season 3. At the football match, the scene with Rebecca wondering how many states are in this city mirrors Ted's question about how many countries are in this country from season 1. And just in case you are also confused, the Kansas City metropolitan area straddles Missouri and Kansas, with the city split in half. Henry wears number 9, Jamie Tartt's number, and I think that Jamie is the player that Ted refers to when he tells Henry's coach he used to have a player like him. Bisler, Henry's sub, could be a shout to Matt Bisler, a retired Sporting Kansas City, USA international football player that's also from Overland Park in Kansas City, as is Ted/Jason. And also, I thought that was a good pass. The other player should have moved into space. Then the Europeans go sightseeing. Higgins is keen to see Benny Goodman's shoes at the Jazz Museum and wears a very cool Miles Davis t-shirt. The two museums on 18th and Vine, the American Jazz Museum and the Negro League Baseball Museum, are real and they both look really interesting and certainly provide some good opportunities for going into Wikipedia rabbit holes. Rebecca and Keely enter the boutique of Tammy Dineen, who surely must be the older sister of Tom Dineen, who was Ted's best friend. According to Ted in season 1, loving a sports team is a lifetime obsession, much like a best friend's older sister. Tammy's boutique benefited from Taylor Swift's Eras tour that visited Kansas City in July 2023. Other than Tammy's boutique, the tour added $4.3 billion in the US economy alone and boosted local economies around the planet. We also visit Ted's childhood home. Ted has a dartboard in his old room. We remember he was a top player from season 1 when he hustled Rupert Mannion. We also see a copy of Esther Forbes' Johnny Tremaine. As we found out in season 2, that was a book that he had to write a test on when he was in school but hadn't read and was in tears. Secretly, his father stayed up all night to read it and narrated to Ted on his way to school, making that one of Ted's most favorite memories of his dad. And yes, I would have loved to see more of Jason Sudeikis' baby pictures. You gotta love the Mama Lasso stories. You see where Ted gets it from, even though hers appear to be complete fabrications. The story about Yul Brynner is quite specific. I wonder if she's the original musical fan of the show, and she was thinking of one of his more famous roles in the musical The King and I. Now, some background on women's football. We see the excellent facilities and glorious atmosphere at the game between real teams KC Current and Gotham City, but we also get a sense of the precariousness of the endeavor when Higgins is worried about Twickenham FC having just folded. The Women's League in the US is doing fine at the moment, but there were two associations that folded before the current one. The English League, WSL, has also not had an easy road. As Higgins notes, the English FA banned women's football in the 1920s for reasons, in addition to the misogyny, that appear to have been financial. In the 1910s, factory teams like the Dick Kerr Ladies FC played hundreds of matches in front of tens of thousands, raising money for charities. The FA couldn't find a way to control that money, so it prohibited its members, the men's teams, from allowing women's games to take place in their grounds. The women's teams couldn't play anywhere, and for decades there was no progress. There's also the argument that the women's teams are a financial burden to the men's teams. Just to be clear, professional teams, even Premier League ones, are often loss-making anyway. According to SportsPro.com, in the 24-25 season, only 4 teams made a profit. The champions Liverpool making a mere £8 million profit out of a £700 million revenue. Nate's team, West Ham, lost a staggering £100 million. And the Premier League itself only really got off the ground in the early 90s. When Rupert Murdoch's BSkyB poured money into it via a £300 million television rights contract. So it's a little bit more complicated. Anyway, back to Ted. We catch a glimpse of his study at home. We see some Kansas City merch, along with Richmond souvenirs. We see a framed George Brett baseball shirt. He's a retired Kansas City Royals third baseman. The photo of boxer James Buster Douglas defeating Mike Tyson in a fight in Japan in 1990, when Tyson was favored to win 42-1, that he also had in his office in Richmond. Then there is a book that looks like it's Gary Speed unspoken. broken. Gary Speed was a very successful retired football player turned manager who likely died by suicide at the age of 42. We remember that that's how Ted's dad died. We then are finally shown Ted's wall, in addition to the John Wooden Pyramid of Success and the North Carolina State Victory photo from 1983, also formerly in Ted's Richmond office. We see Beards and Jane's wedding photograph from the end of season 3, with Kenneth, the team's bus driver slash ex-cult leader slash Beards drug dealer, officiating. We see the photo that Nate gave to Ted for Christmas in season 2 that Ted kept at his home in Richmond next to the photo of his son. You may remember that Nate was hurt when he thought Ted had discarded it before he resigned in anger at the end of season 2. There's Earl Greyhound, the dog that Nanny Rojas accidentally penalty killed in the first episode of season 2. There's May, the wise and cranky owner of the Crown and Anchor pub that Ted and Richmond faithfuls frequented. This article describing how Rebecca had sold 49% of the club's shares to the fans was from the newspaper that Ted got in the airport when he was flying back to KC at the end of season 3. From season 3, we see the snow globe that Keely gave Ted. She had originally given it to Barbara as a leaving the job gift, but that weirdo gave it back as she stayed with Keely to be her business partner. And wait, is that Doc Sharon's story? Then there's Ted's and Pep's handshake at the last Manchester City game. There are some new photos. Roy Kent is hoisting the FA Cup, presumably as the Richmond coach. That's an important English trophy to win for a medium team like Richmond. And there's a smaller Keely photograph next to it. And we also get a glimpse of an article by Trent Krim, indicating that Jamie Tart was leaving Richmond for a team in Spain? Ted still has the Lego set that he built with Henry in season 3. Talk about a hoarder, eh? And before I leave you, some stray thoughts. The box that Rebecca gives Ted doesn't have biscuits, but tea from Fortnum and Mason, a very posh department store on Piccadilly. If Ted doesn't like that tea, he will never like anything. And yes, I was expecting a spit take as he was drinking, but alas. As Ted is driving around Kansas City, he passes by the Uptown Theater where tomorrow's event will be Thundergong, an annual fundraising concert organized by Steps of Faith, the charity founded by Jason Sudeikis' friend Billy Brimblecombe to fund amputees' prosthetic needs, and in which Jason Sudeikis and friends regularly contribute. Brimblecombe also gave his name to a Manchester City player in season 1. Ted uses the word Oklahoma as a cat the crap word with his wife. He used that word with his work wife back in Richmond too. It's of course not a reference to the state, but to one of Ted's favorite musicals starring Jamie Tart. Twickenham, the location of the fictional women's team that withdrew from the league, is very close to Richmond, and in fact the show has passed off Twickenham locations for Richmond in the past. Ted cites Tina Knowles as a mother who meddled in her kids' business. Her daughters are Beyonce and Solange. Tina Knowles famously supported Destiny's Child in their early years, contributing to their success. And that's it from me for this episode. And if you like even more cute details, I have some more Ted Lasso videos you may enjoy. If you want to watch more of those, why not like or subscribe? As always, thanks for watching.